we talked about the war, we talked about our history. But after reading this book, I realized that I really don't know that much about it, at least not in this much detail. I love books, and I read a lot. This year, I made a personal goal to read one book per week. And in this series, I will share with you some of the books that made quite an impression on me. I hope you enjoy this. Hi everyone! So as you can see, I have a special guest today because I asked Ray to join me and help me share with you about the book that we both love. And this is that book. It is Rampage, MacArthur, Yamashita, and the Battle of Manila by James M. Scott. It was published in 2018, so it's kind of roughly new. The book opens when MacArthur was in Corregidor, tama? When he was fleeing, Corregidor, kasi nga the Japanese occupation is about to start, and MacArthur is leaving Manila.
This book is really about the battle between the two generals. You could read between the lines na we were just victims of the situation.
That's what
bystanders.
That's what I got. That's the sense that I got when I read this. The Filipinos are really the victims that caught in between the two generals, just like you said. This book really surprised me because we all had Philippine history in our elementary and high school days, and we talked about the war and we talked about our history. But after reading this book, I realized that I really don't know that much about it, at least not in this much detail. Why were we called the Pearl of the Orient?
Yung Pearl of the Orient was not really ours.
Yeah.
Yun yung bittersweet doon, parang it's not really ours kasi Manila Hotel, di ba? We are so proud of Manila Hotel. We are so proud of being called Pearl of the Orient. And this book made me realize it was not ours. Kasi
it wasn't really us. It wasn't really Filipino.
I couldn't tell, pero
at least based from the book,
it wasn't ours kasi kapag may colored skin sa Manila Hotel, brown Filipinos,
folks.
pinapaalis.
Yeah.
So meron talagang racism, of course, in 1940s, di ba? In the process of saving it, they destroyed it. Yun yung bittersweet. Kung isipin mo, sayang yung Manila na nasira ng World War II. Intramuros, dates back to 1500s, 1600s, yes. Oldest structures, colonial structures, art and histories.
Right. I remember we talked about this before. That's one of the realizations then in the book na it didn't really feel Filipino. And that's one of my takeaways then, or observations, one of my initial observations of the book, wherein I said that I feel like it's still very American. The perspective is still very American, and I long for more Filipino voices in the book because this should be our story. This happened in our city. It is more like the story of the Battle of Manila about the Americans in Manila at the time. Majority of the stories that you will find here would talk about the Americans in the internment. Is that right? Internment camp?
Internment.
Internment, which is the UST. University of Santo Tomas. May mga Filipinos din, but mostly are really American nationals, and really they were one of the major reasons why the Americans also wanted to come back, because they needed to save the Americans. And that's one of the eye-opening chapters din sa book, when he started talking about, and he started sharing very much in incredible detail what happened in that interment. And for those na mga, the Tomasians out there, UST graduates, UST students, you should know this. I would think that they teach you this in school, but this is an incredible detail. If you haven't read this, I think you would be interested to kind of just find out what really happened in your hallowed halls of your school. I mean, not all schools can have such history.
And at some level, dun sa juxtaposition ng pagsusulat ni James Scott, yung MacArthur trying to save his loft, his penthouse on top of Manila
Hotel. Yeah.
It was, andun lahat, kasi tumira siya doon, yung dad niya tumira sa Manila, andun lahat ng
treasures niya, memorabilia,
memories niya.
and everything.
So, he was just trying to save that. And yung pagkakasulat lang na the Filipinos were trying to save their what little they have left in Ermita, in Manila, in Intramuros. Tapos, MacArthur was trying to save his luxurious penthouse.
Yeah, that part of the book was, for me, was quite telling. It was revealing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we talked about this, I shared this with you na I felt like the author and the publisher kind of did that on purpose, that they told the story in that sequence na, like you said, there's no opinion in the book. It's really just matter of fact. It's historical and factual. But the way in the series of events that how they shared it, that's when you kind of, if you can read between the lines and if you could just follow your emotion throughout the book. And it is going to be an emotional read, especially if you're a Filipino. It is going to be an emotional read. It is not going to be easy. But I think that's the point of it. I mean, war is never easy, right? So for me, that's the irony of it, and it was quite painful to read that part of the book. Kasi yun nga, the irony that it felt like MacArthur just only wanted to save yung luxuries niya, but then the Filipinos are trying to save what little dignity they have left because they have none. They have none. Filipinos were raped. The men and their family were killed, decapitated, beheaded just for whatever reason. The women are raped a number of times. And they were made to do, horrifying things. And speaking of that, we cannot not talk about the war crimes done also. And to me, that's another eye-opener. We have seen a lot of World War II documentaries, right, in Discovery Channel, National Geographic, but I don't think we've ever seen any documentary about the Battle of Manila. And maybe that's just because there's really no record of it anywhere. Diba, walang footage or just not enough record, that's why. But in this book, somehow, whatever historical archives there was left, and it's all in here. So the war crimes in the Battle of Manila really will make you think of the war crimes done in Germany, Poland, that, similar to that, yung mga concentration camps. It's as horrifying as that. So for me, it was surprising to me that we do not know about these. And I didn't know about it. I mean, I knew there was a war here, but I didn't know it was at that horrifying level. And I keep saying horrifying kasi wala na ako, I can't think of any other word. But yeah.
Buti nabanggit mo kasi isa yun sa mga big takeaways dito sa libro na to. No? Kung sa Israel, meron silang Holocaust Museum. Bakit dito sa Pinas wala tayong museum to remember what happened during the Battle of Manila?
It's good that you mentioned about the museum kasi I remember when we went to Vietnam, meron din sila, di ba? They have a war museum. It's not as grand as the Holocaust Museum, but it's there, and that was quite helpful to just remember and to also educate the next generations, because these are the things that you should know. This is something that we should talk about more, or at least talked about in schools, because we know a lot about other histories, but this, I don't think we know it at this level of detail. It's going to be difficult to read. There will be chapters after, several consecutive chapters of horrifying, terrifying, appalling, depressing stories, and it will come to a point na you would almost feel desensitized to it kasi yun na naman, it's the same thing. You kind of want to move on. Parang, okay, when will the rescue arrive? When will we get out of this? So it's not easy to read, but again, what I said na, you have to power through it. You have to power through it. You have to read it. You have to give it that respect that it deserves. So yeah, I would recommend this to every Filipino, actually.
Oh, not only for the... this not only a curious read.
Yeah, exactly.
Parang it's almost like a duty. I don't know, you gotta learn your history. So, kung nabasa mo na yung mga history textbooks natin, this is a must-read for Filipinos.
Yeah, so there's so much, and obviously we have a lot to say, to share about this book. We appreciate the book so much, and we cannot stress it enough. Do read it when you have the chance, when you have the time. Don't worry or don't beat yourself over it if you feel like it gets a little too heavy and you feel like you need to put it down for a while. that's fine. You can get back to it. And similar to what I said to the other book that I also recommended, you can get back to it, and it's still going to be worth it. And I'm sure you'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate your history more, and you'll appreciate the places that you go to here in Manila. So yeah, so there you have it, and I hope that's helpful. And thank you, Han,
You're welcome.
for joining me today. And I asked him to join me because I knew this is going to be a difficult share for me, and because I also when I read this, parang practically after every chapter I had to share with him what I read because I needed to bounce off the ideas, I needed to bounce off what I read. So this is a great way to share this with you as well. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna go right ahead and just gonna ask Ray, what did you like about the book, Han?
Ayaw lumabas. It's a constipation of words.
Oh my gosh.